Well, welcome everybody to the online program for the Sunshine Coast Health Center here in Powell River, British Columbia. And we've been talking on this series about impulsiveness. Not all addicts are impulsive, but there's a lot of them. And we're borrowing some ideas of this fellow, David Shapiro, in his book here, Neurotic Styles. Anyway, Shapiro writes about alcoholics as impulsive, and I think we can safely say this would apply to all addicts, that they'll tend to act on a whim, on a hunch, on some half-formed idea, rather than take an active, deliberate reflection on what's going on. Okay. And one of the things that we know about this impulsiveness is they tend to be sort of live in the moment. And it makes sense because their big picture of life isn't like they see life as just a series of disconnected things such as opportunities, frustrations, sensuous experiences. And so living in the present becomes important because that's what really is important. If there's no real plan to the place, if there's no real logic happening to life, then there's no point in really paying a lot of attention to the future. And a typical thing we'll hear from someone, for example, is someone in recovery will go out and go to the bar and have a drink. Maybe they say they didn't plan to, but they end up having some drink. And then we talk to them later. And of course they usually feel really embarrassed and ashamed and guilty and everything else. But very often they'll make this comment, and the comment will be something along the lines of, well, I was thinking about it, you know, and I knew I really shouldn't do it. Yeah, but I just, something came over me and I did it anyways. And this is an important point here because they actually had thought about it, right? It wasn't done out of ignorance or anything. It's just, they actually made the comment that they thought about it, but they thought, like most of the things in their lives, just sort of came and gone. In other words, they didn't pay attention. There was not a lot of deep, deliberate, active reflection on this thought. It was like everything else in their life, right? It just sort of came and then it went. And so this idea of being just in the present moment, right? Without any thought of, you know, deep reflection, which would give you this idea that, oh, geez, if I go get drunk, you know, I'm going to feel crappy the next day and all that. They're not paying attention to that kind of stuff because that's not how their world works. But right in the moment, and this present centered. And the other thing that we know about impulsive people is they tend to be very concrete. So there is some immediate promise, for example, to our fellow who goes out and has a drink, even though he's in recovery. And he knows that that immediate promise is, oh, I'll feel good, and not really paying attention to the next day. Right? So these two things that Shapiro points out here is a concreteness, what's promised in the moment, as opposed to this deep reflection about, you know, the possible disasters that could happen. And also this idea of living right in the moment. Because right now I'll feel good. Yeah, I'm not going to worry about what's going to happen tomorrow morning, even though I may know, right? This thought will come through my mind that, you know, it's going to be a disaster. But that kind of deliberate, active, deep reflection is not part of the impulsive's repertoire in his style. Anyway, that's a couple of things that David Shapiro tells us about impulsiveness. And next week we'll be back with another one.